Hello everyone, and welcome to this film entitled A Week in the Life of Murphy and Ray. Now, Murphy and I have been working together for about 4 years now, visiting many homes for the elderly, sometimes hospital wards, and we love our work. And on top of that, we sometimes go to places like Wattisham Airfield. We interview people who are active in our community. Now, Murphy is a border collie, and he's very gentle, and he loves his work, and he loves his food. I used to be a partner on a farm at Charles Hall, Rinkshaw for many years, but due to depression and back trouble, I had to come out of that partnership. But I have proved that when God shuts one door, other doors open. One verse that helped me greatly when I had poor health and had to retire was this: Psalm 37 verse 3. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Time and again I prove that promise to be true. Well, we're in one of the large hangars at the base now with an Apache, and I have the privilege of being with an Apache pilot. What is your name?
My name's WO2 Andrew Farmer.
What does WO2 stand for?
It means basically a 1 officer class 2, or the equivalent of sergeant major.
Very good. And do you enjoy your work, Andy?
I love my work, particularly I've been in the Army for 20 years, and really enjoy working on and flying the Apache.
Okay, let's run through some of the points of the aircraft, Andy.
Yeah, sure. What we've got here, Ray, is what's known as an MTADS aircraft, which is Modernised Target Acquisition and Designation System. Essentially, the Apache looks or flies at night and fights using infrared energy. That's the heat emitted by a body or by a surface, and the contrast it has with its surrounds. Now, on the legacy aircraft, which we're going to have a look at over the other side, the generation FLIR, or forward-looking infrared as we call it, is what's known as first generation. It's what's known as a fire control radar. The whole aircraft is just a weapon system. It has no other functions. It doesn't support, it doesn't carry, it doesn't move. It carries weapons to the battlefield and uses.
Well, for this film, A Week in the Life of Murphy and Ray, up at Wattisham, we're doing something a little bit different this time, because I've caught up with Lieutenant Colonel John Bryant, who is not just an esteemed officer, but also a personal friend. And he actually, along with his wife Emma, had lunch with the Queen. And I thought it would be nice to learn a little bit about that. Tell me, Lieutenant Colonel John, where did you actually have lunch with the Queen?
We were fortunate enough to be invited to the Athenaeum in Bury St Edmunds after the Maundy Thursday service. And we were two of about 150 people, I think, who had lunch with the Queen of the Duke of Edinburgh.
Did you actually eat, John?
That is a very good question. I can remember the food was delicious, and I seem to recall that there was some beef involved somewhere along the lines. But it was a very delicious 3-course meal.
Now, you're commanding 3 regiments. Is this the first time you've commanded the regiment?
Yes, I've been in command here now for 2 years. And I have about 6 months to go before I hand over to my successor.
And do you know where you're going then?
Funnily enough, I'm going to move from this office here to about 200 yards up in that direction to take command of the Apache training organisation that's here at Wattisham.
Lieutenant Colonel John Bryant, thank you for all you do for us here, and be assured of our prayers and of our interest in you at all times.
Thank you very much.
Only the 2 crew operate out of the aircraft. The front position is operated by, or what we call the co-pilot guller, or the CPG. That's the position I sit in. It's usually where the aircraft commander sits, however it's not exclusive to him. The rear position is occupied by the pilot. Me briefly on to, usually at high level, he has control of the gun, the 30mm cannon located underneath the aircraft. It can move left and right as quick as you can move your head, 120 degrees per second. It's accurate out to 4.5 kilometers. And traditionally the role we use it in is with the co-pilot gunner using missiles or rockets. The pilot is sat with the gun slaved to his eye. If he sees a threat, for example, beneath him in a 3 o'clock, it's a simple case of pushing a button, the gun will slave to exactly where he's looking, it will fire at a predetermined range and engage the target. And this pretty much happens most days in Afghanistan because they engage us as well, and we can return fire even when we're not looking at them. 90 degrees away we can shoot them or shoot at them if required. So it's a very capable system. Fantastically well protected, particularly over the frontal arc. Can withstand, as I said, hits from large caliber rounds. It's not the silver bullet. It's not the answer to everything. However, in terms of capability, it is the best attack helicopter in the world today, and we're very lucky to have it.
Well, Andy, your next appointment is coming up. We must let you get on, but thank you so much for talking to us about your helicopter. And again, I say, we do remember you all in our prayers, and we trust that you'll be made a blessing to Queen and to country and to people in other parts of the world too.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Well, with the police operations unit at Wattisham, I'm finding out a bit more today about the police helicopter. Now, I'm with PC Dale Owen. And how long have you worked on the police helicopter, Dale?
For 3 years now.
And how long has the helicopter itself been based at Wattisham?
It's been operational since the year 2000, so nearly 8 years, or just over. Yeah.
Now, you do a marvellous work in our area. You help us to feel more secure as you fly over us, but sometimes you have quite difficult tasks to attend to, don't you?
Yes, we do. We spend most of our time searching for people, both offenders and suspects who have made off from officers, or indeed missing people, from children all the way through to elderly people.
Now, you talked just now about a heli lift. Is that the little apparatus that's being used to move the helicopter?
Yeah, you can see in the background now the crew are using the heli lift, which is a piece of equipment that manoeuvres the aircraft on the ground, primarily to get it in and out of the hangar. But also on this occasion the pilot's just moving it so the aircraft is into wind and the fact that the cockpit isn't being scorched by the sunshine.
Right. Do you enjoy being a policeman, Dale?
I find it very satisfying, certainly with the aircraft. Without it, it would make the job of the officers on the ground very difficult. So indeed we assist the other police officers and the other units to achieve the police role, which primarily is to save life.
OK, Dale, tell us a little bit more about the helicopter itself. How much did she cost when she was new?
I'm not sure of the exact figure. I know it's a number of millions of pounds. However, as soon as it's found that first person and saved that life, it's worth its weight in gold, to be honest. We are getting a new aircraft this time next year will be operational, which is a requirement from the government through the Home Office that this aircraft now will be sold on, and we will have an upgraded aircraft with an autopilot system and the latest police roll equipment and the latest technology attached to it.
OK, Dale, now when you're flying, tell me, do you ever use the old-fashioned maps?
Yes, we do, and we carry all the maps. However, we have this GPS navigation system which allows us to have mappage of where we are, a precise location where we're going to, and all the various levels of different maps, all the way down from an aviation map on a 500,000 scale, all the way down to a road street index with individual premises.
Now, how many months were you training before you could transfer from an army helicopter to a police helicopter?
Well, I joined the police as a serving police officer. I did my training and my 2 years on the beat and went through my probation, as all police officers do. And then a vacancy came within the Air Operations Unit. I passed the selection and here I am now doing the job.
Now, the hangar itself is quite sturdy, isn't it? Wasn't that originally built for the tornadoes?
Yes, indeed. Way back in the Cold War, these were built as bomb-proof shelters for fast jets.
Right. OK. Well, it's been nice to talk to you. Well, at Wattisham Airfield now, I have the privilege of being with Colonel David Turner, who is the commanding officer of the base. Is that correct?
I think in the Army my appointment is called the station commander. But no, it's the commanding officer. Yes, I run the base. I sit at the top of all these people running around, flying helicopters and looking after them.
Now, because you've been a good personal friend to me over a few years now, and sometimes I call you Sir David, do you mind if for the purpose of this interview I call you David?
Ray, you can call me David. You can drop the title.
Thank you. OK, David, when did you first sign on as a member of Her Majesty's forces?
I can't remember, it's so long ago. I do remember. I joined the Army in 1978, which does seem a long time ago. And I have served with a number of people. I've served with the infantry, I've served with the logistic corps, and latterly I've spent most of my time with Army aviation. Probably about 25 years of my Army service has been with helicopters. And this is my third time back to Wattisham. But yes, when I left on my second tour of duty here, it was in a Harrier jump jet. And we had created a relationship, we had a working relationship with number 4 Army Cooperation Squadron of the RAF. And number 4 Squadron is a Harrier squadron, and they were based at Cottesmore in Lincolnshire. And because we were good friends and we worked together, the regiment quietly and secretively arranged for me to leave the regiment in the rear seat of a Harrier, which was a fantastic occasion. And while we were flying, it was a very rainy day, if you recall. I don't know if you were there.
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
We took off and immediately were in the clouds and couldn't see the ground at all. And then the pilot, who was my opposite number, the commander of the RAF squadron, he said, well, we'll do a low pass, we'll go back and find them. So we groped our way through the clouds and saw the runway, and as we flew over the runway to wave goodbye to the regiment were formed in a number 4 to salute me, which is very kind of them. And I wish I'd got a picture of it, really.
That sounds lovely. Now, one thing also that sparks off very happy memories was on the occasion when your regiment received the freedom of the borough of Ipswich. That was a very happy time, wasn't it?
It was, and actually we're here in my office, and the picture, I don't know if the camera can see it, the picture to my right is of the parade, and that was done by a local artist, Peter Ansell, who lives in Great Brycid. And the picture above me, behind me as well, if the camera pans, is also a painting of that parade, which was presented to me by the regiment when I left. So great days, and the Freedom Scroll is actually on the wall, so I'm very proud of it. As you can see, I've surrounded myself with the history. But a great day, and Ipswich have been very kind to the military base, very supportive, and we have grown very close over the years, and I think there is a feeling in the town that they own the regiment, they are part of the community, and I think the soldiers appreciate that, especially when they're allowed to go and parade through the town and then go into the pubs afterwards.
Yes. Well, this leads me on to say, David, that you are to be commended for creating a wonderful atmosphere on the base, because as Paul, my cameraman, and I've gone round today, we've been made so welcome, and everyone seems like brothers, really.
Oh, I think we are a close-knit family, and I think even more now as we're facing operations in Afghanistan, which is quite a difficult task. But when you're doing that, you do grow closer together, and the strength of the army is in the teamwork and the bond that's created between individuals. And what I've tried to do here is to instill in everybody a feeling of pride, but not a feeling that people are above or elite, and that everybody should work together. There's no people who are too important not to actually communicate and get to know everybody else. And the Apache is a brilliant aircraft flown by very talented people, but they couldn't do their job without all the other support from engineers and ground support people they need to actually fly. So they haven't to be arrogant, I think that's my word, and everybody's got to get on with each other.
Well, David, it's been really great talking to you. We won't take up any more of your valuable time, but I would just like to present you with a special present. It's a Bible, but it's no ordinary Bible. It's actually a camouflaged Bible. Now, the Bible has been a great blessing to me and still is a great blessing, and I hope you'll find benefit from this little gift.
Ray, that's very kind, and let me shake you by the hand. I mean, this is a very wonderful gift, and I will treasure it, and yeah, I'll always carry it with me. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, Phil, when we think about Wattisham Airfield in Suffolk, we don't just think about local situations, we think often about Afghanistan. We remember folks there in our prayers. You yourself have served over there, have you not?
That's correct. I spent last year 6 months working in Helmand Province as the hospital chaplain in Camp Bastion out there, and previous to that I had actually been out in the former Yugoslavia as the senior chaplain for Bosnia, Croatia, Kosovo, Macedonia.
Right.
Yes, so I have been out there, yes.
So, Phil, tell me, what's the most challenging part of your job?
I think the most challenging part of my job, I'll just let the lorry go past for a moment. The most challenging part of my job is dealing with those worst possible situations where you're dealing with moments where people have died, where you're dealing with the families, or even dealing with the deceased themselves, and how you actually maintain reverence, dignity, and also the need to help the family understand and how to grieve.
Well, Phil, may I say again that many of us do remember you here in our prayers. May you be able to point many men and women to the wonderful Saviour, who's the light of the world and the comforter of all those that seek him.
Yeah, that's tremendous. But also we need to remember the fact that in our camp at Camp Bastion, we do have now 2 churches operating, and they have congregations of between 20 and 30 meeting each Sunday. There are Bible study groups going on. So even out there, the Christian faith is being practiced by those people who are putting their lives in harm's way.
Very good, Phil. Thank you for your time. It's July the 11th, 2009. Paul and I are filming today at Wattisham Airfield. There are special celebrations here today because it's the 70th anniversary of the base. But as well as aircraft, there are old cars. And here we have my friend Peter. Come a bit nearer, Peter. And you have what here today?
I've got a 1936 Morris 8 Tourer.
And how long has it been in your possession, Peter?
Well, I first owned it in 1956, and then I sold it when we'd got children on the way, and it disappeared out of sight until 1992 when my son found it as a wreck in Newmarket.
Right.
And we then spent 2.5 years renovating it.
Well done. And you've made a good job of it, Peter.
Well, it looks quite nice now.
It's been ever so nice to talk to you, and congratulations on restoring this wonderful old car.
Well, it'll be in the family forever and a day now.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Another gentleman happy to be interviewed near to the vintage cars. His name is Mr. Dave Bagshaw. You're interested in vintage cars. Do you own any, Dave?
I have an MGB, actually. It's not quite as ancient as these behind us.
No?
1968.
Right, but you're also interested in aircraft.
Yes, I've been flying virtually all my productive life.
Have you?
Yes, I'm ex-Royal Canadian Air Force and Royal Air Force.
And you've brought some here today?
Well, the American biplanes that we fly, I'm privileged to be able to, with the owner's permission, of course.
Well, I'm back with Phil Fanning, one of the padres up here at Wattisham. And Phil, you're very interested in gliding.
Yeah, that's right, and I'm sitting in the glider that I normally fly at weekends.
How long can you stay up?
Well, in this particular aircraft, I've stayed up 5.5 hours.
Have you really?
Yes.
That's good.
So, you know, it's putting your trust in the aircraft and in what you've been taught.
What's the wingspan, Phil?
It's 15 metres.
Right. Fairly wide, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but you need it to stay up.
Well, thanks, Phil, and happy gliding.
Okay, thank you, and God bless.
Well, at the airfield, Paul, my cameraman, and I are having a lovely time. There's so much to see and old friends to meet. I'm now with a couple that used to run the home at Strickland's in Stowmarket. And how long was that for?
About 17 and a half years, Ray.
And tell us your names.
Well, I'm Poppy and this is David and our name is Robinson. I expect people know that when they see and hear me with my Suffolk accent, of which I'm very proud.
Right. Now, David, you said that you can remember the base before it was actually built.
That's correct, yeah.
It was
1937 or something like that. Yeah. I can't remember exactly, but yeah.
Well, of course, in the wartime, the first bombing raid left from here, and they were the Blenheims, weren't they?
That's right, yes. That was 110 Squadron, I think. I think I remember that being 110. Yeah.
But it must be a treat for you both to be here today.
It is. It's marvellous, absolutely marvellous. Because I was quite a child when it opened, and I was 9 when the war started, and I remember it. I was rather excited, actually, and sort of having this aerodrome near, that seemed even more exciting. Right. And during the war, we had several Air Force wives and that come and stay with us so they could be near their husbands for a short time.
Well, it's nice to know that there were some happy things that came out of the war. Yeah. And it looks as though we timed that just right, because we've a bit of competition now.
Oh, it's another one they've gone out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Well, at Wattisham, it's a privilege to welcome a real stalwart, Wing Commander Wallace. How long have you been flying, sir?
I've been flying for over 72 years.
That's a good record. What did you first of all fly?
Early in the war, actually, I first of all flew DH-60 Moths, before the Tiger Moth came out.
Right.
But in the war, I flew Lysanders initially, but then I was on Wellington bombers over Germany, and then I did another tour of bomber operations in Italy later on in the war.
What was the Wellington like to get off the ground?
Well, it was not the most comfortable aircraft. It was freezing cold. It just flew, but it was a good, tough old thing. If it hadn't been such a tough aircraft, I wouldn't be here today.
No. Right.
I've had a lot of adventures with the Wellington.
Now, just briefly, tell us a little bit about your lovely little aircraft that you've developed. What is it called?
It's called an auto-gyro. There were auto-gyros before the war, but they were big windmill things, not this tiny thing. But I decided I was going to make an experiment, and in 1959 I made one first experiment fly, but it frightened me a bit here and there, and I sat down with a clean sheet of paper, and I designed something that turned out to be far better than I dared hope. So all my aircraft are of the same basic design.
Good. Yeah. And the police use them, do they not?
Sorry?
The police use them.
I've done work for the police. I searched for Lord Lucan when he went missing and so on.
Yeah.
Yes, I've had a number of worthwhile contracts with British Aircraft Corporation, with the Ministry of Defence and so on. Yeah. But someone needs to produce them, that's the thing. You need a company to do that. But they've proved that they work day and night, all weather.
Commander Wallace, thanks again for coming, and thank you for all your work on behalf of so many with your particular field of service.
Well, thank you very much. I've been a lucky lad, actually, and I'm not complaining at all. It's been great. Thank you.
So at Wattisham Airfield, through the years, there have been ever so many types of aircraft that have touched down and taken off. I'm with a friend now, and your name is?
Tom Scribner.
Tom, you were involved with the Meteors.
I was involved with the Meteors first and foremost, which were I came here. I'd already worked on them. Actually, I'd had a chance of flying in one, a 7. But after that, going to various stations, I ended up at Wattisham more at the end of my service, 10 years service in the RAF.
Let's move on to your colleague here, and we're going to talk about the hunters. First of all, what's your name?
Bill Grant.
And you were involved in flying, were you, Bill?
No, I wasn't actually aircrew, but I had opportunities to fly in the aircraft, yes. So I flew in a Meteor aircraft, and I've also flown in a Phantom aircraft. So a big difference between the two.
Are you enjoying today?
Yes, I am. Okay.
Well, thank you ever so much for your contribution.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Well, at the open day, it's great to be involved with the museum because there's so much here that dates back not just to meteors and hunters, but it goes right back to the beginnings. Now, Maggie, you're the curator of the museum. Do you get many people who visit you who are in the 80s and 90s now?
Yes, we do. Not so many, of course, as we used to who are involved. But yes, we do get a lot of those people, yes.
And do you get a lot of Americans coming over?
We have had. We had 2 occasions when they came over in 2003 and 2005 to dedicate the new RAF and United States Army Air Force Memorial. But today, I think some of them, it was a bit too much to travel.
Now, also with us is a gentleman whose name I can't remember. Mick?
Mick, yeah.
Now, you're not only involved in working with the museum, but you were based here.
I was based here from 1980 till 93. And I worked on the radar site that's over off the main airfield over the far side of just up from the memorial, actually.
That's a little time for this little film.
Thank you very much, Ray.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
Okay, well, on the base, I've met a friend called Stuart. Now, what rank are you now, Stuart?
I'm a sergeant now. Sergeant in the Army Air Corps.
At Wattisham?
At Wattisham, yes.
How long have you been based at Wattisham?
Overall, I've been here for over 9 years, but I've only been here for 2 years at the moment.
Right, they really push you around in the Army, don't they?
Yeah, a lot of places in the past few years. Yes, I've been to Northern Ireland and to Dishforth in Yorkshire.
What do you like to do when you come out of the Army, Stuart?
I'd like to go into the ambulance service.
Oh, that's a good service.
I thought so, yeah. I've always been interested in that side of things, so I'd like to do that when I leave. So
I think you've got the right personality for that, Stuart. Yeah. And what's your son's name?
This is Caleb. Say hello. Say hello. No, a bit shy.
Bit shy. And is Caleb your only one?
I've got Megan as well. This is Megan down here.
Right. How old is Megan?
Megan's 6.5 now.
They're going to say hello.
Hello.
Good girl. Do you like school, Megan?
Yes.
Well, it's been nice to talk to you all, and may God's blessing rest on you each.
Thank you very much, and you too. Thank you.
Talk about the Apaches. Stuart, how many Apaches are based at Wattisham now?
I'm not sure of the exact figure, but the Army Air Corps has bought a total of 67 that are built on licence from Augusta Westland down in Yeovilton, I believe. And at the moment they're not all of them are actually physically fit to fly. A lot of them have been put into long-term storage for future use. I don't know how many are here at Wattisham at the moment. I think it's around about 30, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, the Apache will go round in literally any direction you want it to go. Up, down, left, right. It can turn in quite small circles. And obviously the good advantage of the Apache over another fixed-wing aircraft is that it can hover, usually behind trees or in valleys, and then stay still in one place.
Excellent.
As you can see now, the Apache is coming in to be reloaded. Are loading on the Hellfire anti-tank missiles. In this case, they're only coloured in blue, which denotes that they are only drilled. They're only basically concrete-filled missiles. They don't actually work, but they're exactly the same size and shape and weight as a real missile. And the arming loading point commanders are now just tidying up, making sure everything's neat and tidy for the aircraft getting ready to depart. The two ICs now are marshalling the aircraft back. You'll notice that the aircraft is lifted up slightly, so the aircraft is not quite flying, but it's just enough to give the rotor blades enough grip to actually power the aircraft backwards. As you can see now, this is the finale for the afternoon. We have practically every single flight capable Apache doing what's called a mass approach.
Well, at Slough Farm, Sandra and I are ever so glad to have friends from Fimber Court with us. And I find as I visit people who are elderly that it's great just to be two ears to such people and to learn from them. We're going to hear one or two testimonies now.
I went to Iceland, to Reykjavik in Iceland, and I was up there for a 12 month.
Was it cold?
Very. And they weren't allowed to keep us up there more than a 12 month,
no,
because apparently there was something in the atmosphere that affected people's health.
Right.
And they only allowed you 12 months there, and then you were brought back to England again. And the day I went to go and see that young wren in the office, and she looked at my accounts and she said, "You're all right," she says, "you've got 90 days leave due to you."
Very good. And Mrs. Liddell, you worked for Sir Winston Churchill, didn't you?
Part of the team, yeah.
Yes. Do you remember the first time you met Mr. Churchill?
Well, in London, the first time really was they were due, the family was due for luncheon, and in those days sometimes, well even now, you sometimes used to have the meal in the sitting room, which could be very awkward if it was full of chairs and things, you know, because there wasn't a lot of room to manoeuvre to get around the table, you see. And he could see the difficulty, and he said to his daughter Mary, "Get up and help the young lady." What he meant was move up one, and that would make it easier, and it was. Yeah, very discerning gentleman. Yeah, that was all there was to it. But it was quite something to witness, because not many would do that. I helped the serving maid.
Yeah, well done.
That Mr. Churchill said that.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Wilson, you were nursing in the war, weren't you? And that was how you met your husband. Would you like to tell us how you met your husband?
He was a torpedo on the Russian convoys, and so he came to our hospital when he came. He was up and down, but I don't exactly remember which port he came from to us. But there were only 2 men out of that 612 sailors on that boat that he was on, and he was only one of them that got saved. And he used to say to them when the bombers came down, "Get under the water!" But they couldn't stay under there long enough. But he could, you see. He was a very good swimmer. So only he and 1 man got back at that time. But anyway, when I married him, I only married him because he only had a year to live. So I thought, oh, well, I might as well marry him and he'll be quite happy. And I only having those few months to live, you see. He lived it then until he was 70.
So how long were you married?
Huh?
How long were you married?
Oh, just over 50 years. We just had the 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what about you, Mrs. Beer, Sylvia? Have you got any special memory of your first day at work or the wartime?
Yes. I was apprenticed to dressmaking and tailoring. And then I was called up and I had to work for Sainsbury milking the cows. You see, we had to, they said that dressmaking wasn't important work. And my husband was called up to the army, and so I had to go and milk the cows with another Land Army girl and the head cowman and the other chap. And one day I was milking this old cow, and that hit me right in the eye.
Oh dear.
I know. And one day I was up at the yard there, giving the calf pens some straw.
Yeah.
And I was now coming out there, and somebody shouted out, "Look out, Sawyer, the old bull has chased." And, oh gosh, yes, a bull was behind me, chasing me down the road. I never run down me.
We have Asta with us, who's helping with the refreshments. And Asta's dad was Mr. George Salisbury, and he was a lovely countryman. I remember he told me once on a farm he saw a cow give birth to triplets. And the cow brought up all of the calves. But Asta, tell us 1 or 2 early memories of your dad's experiences that have been passed down to you, could you?
I can remember being with Dad when I was young, very young, but I can't. He didn't give me a lot of his experiences that I can remember.
No.
But I know he was always a horseman, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was a horseman, and also when he was working at in Great Brimborough when I was small, about 5, he used to go on the horse and play, and we used to sit on the horse.
Did you?
And those the Suffolks, you know,
Aye.
and they were so wide. We couldn't put our legs round them. We had to sit with across them, you know, open out.
Aye.
But we used to help Dad a lot.
Aye.
And Dad used to. He was a dear. He was a dear. But you know, the Lord saved him.
Yeah.
And since then, he was different. He was different. But Dad always used to grow all our own vegetables and keep chickens and the lovely flowers. He always had a vegetable garden, and he always had a border of flowers around the outside.
Well, it's lovely to be together, and in order to get here today, we've had several chauffeurs. One of them has been Mrs. Matthias. Now, Mrs. Matthias drives many miles helping this one and that one, and we'd like her now to share with us some of her early happy memories.
Well, I left school at 14, found a job in Maidstone, which was about 20 miles away from where we lived. So I was there for a year and the war broke out. So I then found a job nearer home on a farm, Market Garden. And it's there they taught me to drive in an old 1000 weight van, double clutch.
Right.
And I didn't have to pass a test in those days. And so I was there for 13 years I was there, and they taught me to drive, and bookkeeping and all that type of thing. And during those years I was saved at Borough Green Baptist Chapel when Pastor H.R. Moss was there. Yeah, lovely.
Sit. Sit.
Oh, so lovely dog.
Well, it's good to have friends from all sorts of backgrounds with all sorts of interests. Let's hear now from Peter Hanford. What can you tell us about your earlier days?
And
Yes, I was born in North London, and I was only a few months old when we moved up to Biggin Hill.
Yes?
And my father was in what they called in those days the War Department, and they specialised in with searchlights and sound locators to pick up aircraft. And we lived actually in Mary Quarters on the RAF station at Biggin Hill. So what was it? I always remember going into the recruiting office at Southampton, and everybody trying to Army and Navy and Air Force trying to come on here, you know, for the military for their section. But no, I went straight into the RAF, and that's how it all started.
Right.
But of course here, again, it's more like my homeland from war days, because I was stationed at IF Mildenhall, IF Lakenheath, IF Chepborough, and Waterreach.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of Luther and Roseanne, Ray's son and the fiancée, and kind of took me to Waterreach. They wanted to see Spurgeon's Tabernacle.
Well, of course, it's ever so interesting to meet people. But one thing I enjoy asking people about is how they met their wives or their husband. And Mrs. Littlehales is going to talk to us now about that. Thank you, Beryl.
Thank you. Well, I didn't have many happy childhood memories, and my mum died when I was 11, and my dad got married again, and so when I was 18 I decided I would join the Women's Royal Air Force, and I knew that there was something missing in my life, and I found out what it was, and it was Jesus. And so I was posted to Northern Ireland, and I met a person who was in the Air Force, and he was able to talk to me about the Lord, and I became a Christian. and then about 18 months later, another person was posted onto the camp, and he'd just come back from Aden, and he wasn't a Christian at all, but we got very friendly because we were working together in the control tower. And one day we were polishing the floor, and he was polishing this way and I was polishing this way, and we met in the middle. So that was exactly how we met. And then we started sort of getting very friendly, and then I said, no, it's no good, you're not a Christian. And anyway, he thought he would take me to the cinema, so I took him to a prayer meeting instead. And he gave his heart to the Lord too. So that was how we met. And the Lord's been fantastic all through our lives. And we've got 3 children and 7 grandchildren. And in August, beginning of August, we went with our church to Zambia to look after some AIDS orphans and vulnerable children. And whilst we were there, you're on camera, whilst we were there, he decided to play football and ended up with this, with his foot in a plaster. So anyway, although the Bible says, God says you will not let your foot slip, on that occasion he did. But yeah, that's our life story so far. Thank you.
That's a good dog. Take it now. Come on, man. Keep it. Come on. Take it to Sandra. Call him. Murphy. Take it to Sandra.
Murphy, come here.
Take it to Sandra. Take it.
Come on.
Take it.
Thank you, Murphy. Thank you.
Welcome to just a little slot in my office. I must apologise for the fact that it's not very tidy, but a lot of work goes on here, and Murphy and myself spend many hours printing labels for tapes, and these all have to be cut out, and sometimes Sandra helps and other people help me as well, so that we can get the good news out and about. Now, also in here, I've got this case just here with my little books and cassettes ready to be distributed. And they go out to hospitals and homes for the elderly and people in general. For our little work, we've had many encouragements. We've received many kindnesses from lots of people. Now, this high-speed tape copier was given to us by Caring for Life. We can fast copy tapes on this machine in just a few moments. And away she goes. Well, thank you for your time as we've been out and about with Murphy. We trust good will come out of this, but we know that we have no goodness of our own in which we may boast, because the Bible says a man is not justified by works, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. When you're a Christian, though, you realise how wonderful are God's works and ways, and that He gave us eyes to see them, and lips that we may tell how great is God Almighty, who hath done all things well. So, as a harvest scene is in the background, This is Paul, our able cameraman, and Ray saying, may the Lord encourage you all.